Ugh, this is not gonna be easy, okay? Listen, you're asking for a lot. You want a car under $3,000, reliable and cool. Man, I'll see what I can do about that. To keep a loose rule of the cool category, I'm just gonna stay away from sort of the more obvious options here, like a Civic or an Accord or a Camry or a Corolla. If you need a car under $3,000 that's gonna be reliable, really get you A to B, you can choose one of those cars and you're probably gonna be okay. Another caveat I will say here is that when you're looking at cars under $3,000, you better start learning how to fix your own car. Most of these vehicles are going to be around 200,000 miles and 20-ish years old, so start learning. You will save a lot of money by working on your own car, but you should start learning now if you don't already. So for each of these cars here, I'll try to talk about their reliability, their reputation, the cool factor, how fast they are, how fuel efficient they are, and sort of take that all into account here. When I was in college, I bought, fixed, and sold cars on Craigslist, and so I really thought a lot about what can I get really cheap, do relatively affordable repairs on, and make a little bit of money on to help support myself. In that year and a half, I made about $10,000. So hopefully that shows that I was pretty efficient with choosing which cars are most affordable. So that's my reputation. Let's get started with the list. And this is in no particular order. So for the first car, I would say it's a little bit less cool, but it is pretty quick. It's a pretty quick car and a very reliable car. And that's the Acura TL or even the Acura RL from the early 2000s specifically. They had a 3.2 liter V6 engine that's incredibly reliable. You'll find these all the time for under $3,000 with 200,000 miles plus. And is that car realistically going to go another 200,000 miles? Despite what the owner says, probably not. Will it keep you afloat for the next year? Probably so. I bought an Acura TL myself. It had a brake issue. I fixed the brake issue and sold the car. I also bought an Acura TL, another 3.2 V6 automatic for my mom, and she's been driving it around for a while now and loves the car. So I have two examples that I'm pulling from Craigslist right now. This first one is $2,000. It has 250,000 miles. It says the AC doesn't work, but it runs and drives good. That sounds about right. I would say this is, a realistic expectation for these cars. This other Acura TL I found, it says it's the Type S. It's an automatic, but it's still the Type S. It's a 2002. It's $1,700, and it says it needs a new oil pan gasket. Both of these cars, I think, are reasonably priced and about what you should expect for an Acura TL. So the cool factor with these cars is kind of low. They were a nice car when they came out, and they are pretty quick. Their fuel economy is something like 20 miles to the gallon probably, and they take premium. So not the most fuel efficient, but I think they are a pretty cool car. Some of them come spec'd with nice audio systems. There is a 6-speed manual option, but those might get a little bit more expensive. Okay, so car number 2 in the list. Again, this is no particular order, but I'm looking at Volvos from the 90s and the early 2000s. I think these are way underrated cars, and people are often very scared to buy them just because it's a Swedish manufacturer. But the 240 cars are exceptionally reliable. I've had one. I had a good friend that had one for a long time. They're ugly, honestly, but they kind of have a quirky appearance to them. The 240 specifically, they look like bricks. Older 240 Volvos, I found one here for $1,500. It says it has 185,000 miles, but with a broken odometer, drivable, but no time to repair. It has some front end damage. I would say that looks about what you should expect for these 240s. And then the second one I found is a newer, early 2000s Volvo. This is a 2003 S60. It's $2,000. 173,000 miles. The thing about the early 2000s Volvos, like the S60 and the S90, is they're not as reliable. Volvo as a company started to move towards more computer control. So you can imagine the early 2000s Volvos are more like working on a BMW or a Mercedes. But still, they're more reliable in my experience than a BMW or Mercedes. But they still come with the same luxuries like leather seats. They're very comfortable cars. Again, the cool factor is kind of low, but I promise you, I'm going to get to some cool ones. I've got 2 more left. Just hold out for that. But again, it's a very comfortable car. When it first came out, it was, a relatively luxurious car. They came with 4 cylinders. All of these Volvos, they either had 4 cylinders, 5 cylinders, or 6 cylinders. Some of them are pretty quick. Some of them have turbos. Some of them don't. There are manual options. They can get anywhere probably between 20 and 30 miles to the gallon. A lot of the newer ones take premium gas. But I think they're pretty cool and comfortable cars. So moving on, I think these are pretty cool. The last one I think is probably going to be the coolest, but these are pretty quirky cars, and I would say the 80s, maybe early 90s, not even early 90s, just the 80s diesel Mercedes. They are absolutely bulletproof cars. I bought a 1984 300 SD as my second car for $600. It had like 250,000 miles on the odometer, and the odometer was broken. I drove that car for like a year. I didn't know anything about working on them, and that was sort of a car that I learned to work on. So I did, my first oil change on or I guess maybe my second oil change on that car. These engines, especially the 5-cylinder turbo engines, are known to, or even the naturally aspirated ones, but they're known to, when they run out of diesel, continue running just on their own oil, which is insane. If you live in a cold weather climate, diesels can be a little bit of a pain because they have glow plugs that heat up the combustion chamber so that when the fuel is injected, it can get hot enough to auto ignite and drive the engine forward. So you can look into diesels and how they work. Diesel fuel is a little bit more expensive depending on where you live, but some of these old Mercedes diesels can get something like 42 miles to the gallon. The 5-cylinder turbo ones probably get closer to like 30. If you're so inclined, you can run these on cleaned used vegetable oil. You can make your own biodiesel. That was something that I did. That was really fun. If you live in a cold weather climate, you'd have to do a conversion to let it run on waste vegetable oil, which would include a heater and a filter. And then you can go to local restaurants and steal their old fryer oil or ask for it nicely and run your car on waste vegetable oil, which is really cool. So if you're a DIY person, I think these old diesel Mercedes are really freaking cool. So anyway, a couple of examples. This is a 1980 300 SD for $1,300, 177,000 miles. It says it runs and drives, which is crazy. I'm tempted to buy this car now. If you're looking for ones that are under $3,000, you're not going to be able to get a wagon. Sorry. People are crazy about wagons now. You're probably going to get a beater one like this. Here's another one. It's a 300D. So the S just means it's a longer wheelbase and a little bit more luxurious. The regular 300Ds are fine too. This one also has the turbo 5-cylinder, 237,000 miles. It's a 1982, $2,500. Looks like everything is good on it at that price, and they're willing to negotiate at $2,500. So very, very affordable car. I think a really cool classic car. Are you going to make money buying and selling one of these? Probably not. But again, if you want to learn to work on cars, or you know how to work on cars and you need something decently reliable, this is another cool, affordable car. Okay, finally, as promised, the coolest one is last. No particular order again, but I think that this is the coolest one and probably the most slept on affordable car that's available right now, and that is the BMW Z3. So these are little BMW convertibles. Their chassis is based off of the BMW E30, which is just an absolutely infamous car. So the handling is going to be similar to an E30, and I think a lot of people will take the steering rack out of the Z3 and put it in E30s. So the BMW community is wild, and there's a lot of parts that can swap between different BMWs. So that's another pro if you want to learn how to work on cars. You'll be able to get a lot of parts, and there's a lot of valuable resources out there on these cars as well. These are going to be a little bit harder to find and a little bit harder to find under that $3,000 price point, but I still want to put it in this list. They come in 4 cylinders and 6 cylinders. They come in a small 6-cylinder and a bigger 6-cylinder, depending on the year. They come in manual and automatic. They're all, well, that's not true. Any of them under $3,000 are going to be the convertible. They also did come in a fastback coupe sort of thing. They're called clown shoes, and usually they're very, very expensive. This one that I found here, I'm sort of cheating because it is a salvage title. It says rebuilt transmission. Who knows? This is probably not a good car to get. But you can find them under $3,000, I promise. This is just the only one I could find today. So this one is $2,000 salvage title. It says it needs work. Who knows what that could mean. But I think these are really good looking cars. They have like this shark grill or shark gill looking thing going down the front of the car. Yeah, when you open the hood, you see the wheel well of the front wheels, which I think is a really cool design. I don't know, something about it. This era of BMW is when they started moving into more computer control and making things a little bit harder to work on, but I think the Z3 still preserves that sort of easy repairability that older BMWs like the E30 or the BMW 2002 had. They're not that difficult to work on compared to modern BMWs. So I think the E36 was probably the last BMW that I would personally want to own, and the Z3 is another sort of earmark in the page of BMW that is the newest BMW that I would be comfortable working on. These are also pretty quick cars. They aren't going to break any records, but they're probably going to be, in the 6-cylinder form, they're probably going to be about as fast as the Acura TL, maybe a little bit faster. And they're really small and nimble, so they're going to be really fun in the canyons or in the corners. The fuel mileage, of course, can vary as well depending on if you get the 4 or the 6-cylinder. The 4-cylinder is probably closer to 28 miles to the gallon, whereas a 6-cylinder is probably going to get about 22 miles to the gallon. I had one of these before with the 2.8 liter inline 6 engine with a 5-speed manual, and it was a really, really fun car to own. I'm a big fan of Toyota MR2s, and they're really light and nimble, and for a little 2-seater convertible for the size of the car, it actually feels pretty heavy and planted on the road. And I think that's a trend in most German cars. They're a little bit heavier. Even the coupes and convertibles are a little bit heavier on the road. So if you're a fan of that, then the Z3 is for you as well. So that's the full list. If this video has been helpful for you, what would really help me out is if you subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment below. Maybe I missed some cars here. Let me know in the comments below. If you do use this video as a guide, tell me what car you got, how many miles are on it, and how much you got it for. I think that would be helpful for everybody watching the video. But that's it. Thanks for watching another episode of Nick's Car History. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.